What are rich people doing differently to become rich? Inherities aside, they are investing. Even innovators with great products or people with huge salaries don't get rich without putting their money into something that will gain value over time. Real estate, stocks, etc. There's also the hard work thing, sure, but no one works harder than dudes doing manual labor in the middle of summer, and they're not so rich. My friend has been putting a percentage of his paycheck into the S&P 500 since he was 21 in 2011. In the beginning, it was maybe $15, $20 a month. Then, after he graduated college and got better pay, it was maybe $50, $70 a month, and he kept increasing the amount as he could over time. Now he's in his 30s with a house that he bought himself. Imagine being able to buy a house? Story 2. My grandfather's comment to me when I graduated from college was, "It's not how much you make, but how much you keep." I'm sure that's not a comment original to him, but I've kept it in mind throughout life thus far. Far from rich, but it's been good advice. Comment. One of my old neighbors did this. Was always complaining about how he had no idea how to afford college for his kids. Meanwhile, he was also complaining about his boat constantly breaking at his beach house. Dude could have retired a multimillionaire without a concern in the world if he was a little bit smarter and disciplined. Truly wealthy people don't buy things that increase their stress. Boats are stupid purchases unless you are so wealthy you can hire someone to take care of it for you. Story 3. Don't fall for lifestyle creep. Invest your money. Have a budget and stick to it. If you can't pay off your credit card in full each month, you shouldn't have one. On average, investing in the S&P 500, every 7 years, you double your money. The earlier you start investing, they better. Comment. Further, credit cards are a tool for financial gain. We buy absolutely everything on credit cards and pay them off on Friday mornings electronically. 1.75% cash back on PNC Cash Builder. Got in 2017, they don't offer it anymore. And 2% on Apple Card when we pay touchless. All money in our pocket. It's like our whole life gets a 2% discount. Story 4. Looking through, there are some good points. I'd also like to include that what you see has a survivor bias. Some of the risks and investments taken may have made people rich, but similar made others poor. Comment. Excluding generational wealth, you look at the entrepreneurs who get rich and tend to work back to say, it must be because they have these traits. But it's very similar to trying to work out why some people become to athletes. There is no single reason. It's a mix of skill, determination, taking advantage of opportunities and luck. We can say Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg became rich because X, Y, and Z. But there were probably 100s or 1000s of people could have done it in a different timeline instead of them, possibly even for different reasons, and due to different traits. A lot of people think the grind set mentality of working 18 hours a day is how someone like Elon got rich, but working 18 hours with a crap product will get you nowhere. If I had to say one thing rich people do differently to become rich, it would probably be not set being rich as their end goal, the focus on something else, and that is the underlying driver. But even then, if you do that, it is not guarantee you will become rich. Story 5. They invest. Seriously, most rich people, I'm not talking billionaires or athletes, just invested their money at a relatively young age and kept the discipline to keep investing and are millionaires by 40, with more average jobs than you think. Compound interest is crazy, and it's unbelievable that basic investing isn't a required course in high school. There are so many people that don't understand the power of compound interest. It's not always about what you make, it's about what you save. Invest. You obviously have to work, but inflation isn't an excuse not to do it. Even $50 a month leads to tens of thousands of dollars over decades. God forbid you double that, and the sky is the limit. Most people don't even start, though. Story 6. This of it like this. Let's take Mark Zuckerberg as an example. Mark was not likely to ever be entirely unsuccessful. In most timelines, he graduates Harvard with good grades in a good field and goes on to some success. Maybe he gets offered $200,000 starting salary to work at a tech company and takes it and works his way up through to senior VP and possibly beyond. He lives a nice upper middle class living or a bit more. Or perhaps he takes an entrepreneurial route, bit more risky, but he probably would have enough connections and support to get going. Usually someone's first idea isn't a hit, but if he keeps at it, maybe he does hit on something and grow a business worth a few million, and possibly more. What did actually happen to Mark Zuckerberg is that he was in the exact right place and time to win the lottery. Sure, his ability and hard work bought him more lottery tickets than most people, but he still won the lottery to become worth tens of billions. There was even a point where he, thinking it was pure brilliance that got him such success, thought to embark on his next trick after Facebook, thinking it could be as successful, and was told, no, that almost never happens. There's probably also a timeline where Mark Zuckerberg is clinically depressed and unlucky and underachieving as well. So, point is, you can't guarantee anything. You can take calculated risks, like going it on your own and starting your own business. If you know people, have some experience with the market in some area, and have some money to get started, that makes it way easier as well. And as some have suggested, if you're starting from $10 million, including coming from wealth, it's far easier to make another $10 million. Otherwise, you can plug away and bust your butt and see where you get. If you're bright and competent and living in a first world country, you're likely to find a way to make a living at the very least. It's only in fields like the arts, where spectacularly talented people who produce great work can still completely starve in some cases. And just to make a point of it, among the stupidest plans to become rich is, I'm going to become a world-class athlete, or I'm going to be a big movie star. Huge numbers of people try to get there that way, and only a teeny tiny fraction of them actually do. Story 7. Glad to see people are talking about budgeting and investing, the two pillars. However, they have normally also solved the boot problem. They invest in the tools and resources they buy when doing so increases longevity or profit. The boot problem basically says that one of the things holding people back is that they can't afford to be better off. When they go in to buy a pair of boots, they have a pair that costs $100 and lasts 6 months, and a pair that costs $500 and lasts 10 years, and they are forced to buy the $100 simply because they never have $500 to invest in the longer-lasting product. This costs them an extra $150 a year. But people who save and tackle a single boot problem can take that saved money and invest it both back into more boot problems and the stock market, even if you don't need boots. There are thousands of boot problems you can get stuck in. For example, if you don't have money to buy a car, you're often stuck using a loan to finance, which means you can't shop the private market as easily and are paying a markup. Since people like this usually have fewer credit opportunities, you might be stuck using a buy here, pay here. Try getting a $2,000 beater at a dealership or car lot. But if you don't have $2,000, you're buying something more just to get anything. Comment. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two, and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett. Story 8. I think stories of people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg throw off the public. In my experience, knowing quite a few self-made millionaires, most of them make career decisions after working in their industry for a while, the majority of the time to start their own firm. I know one guy from a white, working-class background who worked for most of his 20s for other firms before starting his own recruitment firm. That was in the 80s. And he's now worth $70 million. Likewise, I know a guy in travel who spent a long time working for others before breaking out on his own, found a partner to invest, set up his owner company, and 15 to 20 years later, he's very wealthy. Not sure net worth, but makes $500K a year. I think if you want a reproducible model, so to speak, it's about refining yourself in a particular trade or sector, and then branching out when you've reached a certain degree of maturity. For all self-made people I've met, this is what seems to happen. Can be done at any age, but I think it's normally in 30s and in 40s. I'm just speaking from what I've seen as a 29 Mahamers. The other two types are luck, i.e., they invest in the right thing, and it blows up or something. The majority of rich people I know, though, inheritance. They just have rich parents, grandparents, inherit a bunch of property, assets, cycle continues, etc. I think the healthiest way is to see it as a long-term thing that will take at least a decade, maybe less though, if you're lucky, and just build wealth over time. If it's starting a business, take your time and make the right decisions. If you're climbing the career ladder, just do a good job, take opportunities when they come, invest on the side, etc. Again, I'm not rich myself, but from what I've seen, that would be your best bet. Story 9. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. 36 years in the army is the foundation of my level of comfort. What that gave me was a ton of financial security and allowed me to make some galactically stupid decisions and still be okay. Because I had a salary that was not dependent on hourly work, I knew exactly how much I was going to be paid. No worrying about schedule, no hours cut, and no not getting paid because I took a day off. Because I had free, as in beer medical care. I never had to choose between going to the doctor and paying my bills. If my family got sick, I was not going to go broke. This was probably the single biggest benefit toward helping me build wealth. Those things gave me the financial freedom to buy a house, zero down the loan, early in my career, when most people in similar income situations would be taking a huge risk. I could go right to the line for my budget, because the things that most often wipe people out, health and economic downturns, were never a concern of mine. Government work might not pay as well as private sector in the short term, but the payoff comes in that nearly guaranteed income and the deferred income from a defined benefit retirement plan. My defined benefit retirement plan covered up my financial stupidity from when I was young. Early in my career, I invested in beer and parties. The ROI was amazing for the fun meter, not so much for anything else. I was 33 before I got serious about investing for my future, but since I had been paying into my defined benefit plan, SNICE, I was 19. It didn't matter nearly as much. Calculating the value of my defined benefit plan as a variable annuity, the Army forced me to save roughly 3.5 million over the course of 36 years. And that doesn't fully account for the value of the medical benefit in retirement, since I'm effectively pegged at an absolute maximum of $3,000 a year for life and medical costs. Based on the trajectory of medical insurance costs, in a decade that $3,000 will seem criminally cheap. That defined benefit security blanket allowed me to be far more choosy about post-retirement employment. I didn't need to work. That, in turn, landed me a much better position that I truly enjoy, and that I am extremely well compensated for. Oh, and I bought Apple at a split-adjusted $2.50 a share. Story 10. I'm a rags to riches, literally thrice homeless and living in a van, to now being at a six-figure salary, working from home, $250,000 net worth gained in 3 years, etc. Everyone already offered good advice, so let me sum it up in a different way by telling you what my broke friends do that irks me. 1. Spend too much on luxury or entertainment, just dumb purchases. Every paycheck is the #1 killer. They don't care to increase their income aggressively. I've always looked at the next pay grade and looked at what skills I need to develop to get there. I have friends who don't do that, and they have been grinding minimum wage all their lives. 3. Not educating themselves on financial tools, not using HISA, not investing steadily in blue chips or S&P, not looking at first-time homebuyer programs, not using credit cards and paying them off to get a universal 1.5% refund on literally all your purchase just by using the right piece of plastic for, not saving more than $1,000 before feeling compelled to spend it on some dumb crap. My own mother has had this problem. We grew up humble, and she's retired now, but she would never have more than $1,000 before going out to the casinos or WE5. Gambling, This is both literally at casinos or sports betting, as well as with risky investments with shaky companies. 6. I hate to say this one, but getting into a relationship can have a really negative impact on your finances. I have a neighbor who's keeping up appearances for his new GF and taking her on vacations every weekend, even though he's in the mortgage industry and his earnings are 1/3 what they were before. Honestly, there is no magic here. Just increase your income, save your money, invest the extra. If you don't own a house, you should know that they tend to double in price every 10 years, so don't worry about the cost of monthly rent versus owning. Worry about buying a 200K asset that is 400K in a number of years. BTW, this is my personal opinion, and I've used these principles to go from a negative net worth and homelessness to being the closest to being a millionaire between all my friends and immediate family. Story 11. Rich people start and run business. I don't mean some ass-drop shipping bullshit. The start a business in their profession and grow the business. My neighbor wasn't well-to-do from young, got into dentist school, worked as a dentist for a bit, took all his money and started his own tiny clinic. 2 decades later, he employs around 50 staff in the clinic, has a 10+ mill house, a dozen supercars, does literally whatever he wants, and as of recently doesn't even really do any dentist work anymore. He literally takes home an amount of money he can't spend. Next neighbor was a concreter, almost an idiot, kind of meffer who couldn't pass year 10 at school. Decided one day, why don't we pour the concrete in the workshop and send the panels to site finished, and became one of the biggest commercial concrete building companies in the state. Dude has a 100 yacht now. Next house, Jakartan family, owns hotels and shit. Wealthy ass family for generations. Next house, family owns cranes. Biggest crane business in the state. You see a crane, 60% chance this MF name on it. Dude is like 70 and still runs the business, but started at like 20 on his own with a little crane he bought and put on his truck. He just stuck at it for 50+ years. Next house, dude wrote software for some company, stopped and started writing for himself. His program took off. Boom company offers him like $100 mil. Dude sold it all off and retired. Where did rich come from? Starting a business and sending it for a long-ass time. There's hardly any generational wealth in the area. No scammers, hacks, no famous people. Well, a couple I won't name, but they aren't that big. There are some people like doctors and lawyers, etc. Some developers, etc. There aren't really any investors, though these wealthy people from their businesses do also invest to diversify, like they'll have their business, a commercial property, a couple residential properties, some shares, some bonds, some stocks, some cash, maybe some art, etc. But basically, go door to door and talk to them. 90% of them. How'd you get rich? Started a business providing a booming service that grew to be quite large over a long time. Story 12. I've worked in finance for 15 years, including working as a private banker for wealthy clients. The real answer is they have rich families. 95% of wealthy clients I've had either had inheritance or trust funds or joined the family business. Even those that made it on their own actually made it because of family connections and business contacts. The company I work at now has a couple of great examples. The CEO's children work for the company in sales and take home $300K, $400K in commissions each year. They're convinced that they're just really great salespeople, but the reality is that they're doing well because their dad is CEO. All of their deals get pushed through when they wouldn't be approved for others. They get to offer special products that aren't open to others. They're able to offer lower rates than everyone else. I work in mortgage. Their loans get fast-tracked and close around 15 days quicker than everyone else. Also, the CEO has a ton of local connections that send all business to his children. They think they're self-made, but in reality, their privilege led to their success. Send them to any other company, and they would fail. There are definitely people that really make it on their own. It's just much less common. It generally takes a ton of self-discipline, a willingness to take smart risks, and a period of letting work consume all of your time and dedication. Story 13. They educate their kids properly, not just in the traditional sense of going to school, but also getting them exposed to lots of different types of people, culture, languages, etc. They spend money on things that last. A quality house that fits their needs in a good school district. A quality car that first focuses on safety and then reliability. Clothes that fit and are suited to various occasions. Of course, they spend money on their health and well-being, because that's the most important part of having a high level of quality of life. As much as the general public hates to admit this, but rich people in general work hard so they can succeed at their craft. They learn what works and what doesn't work in their industry, and take calculated risk, and stick with that formula until they grind past the competition that tap out before they do. Lastly, they are fiscally literate. You need to at least understand basic finance and wealth building to be able to do exactly that. Become rich. Also, being rich wealthy is also about sustaining it. Once you've reached that goal, you've got to stay there by doing things such as investing in appreciating assets, building and growing revenue streams, optimizing your costs and expenses, and mitigating risk so that wealth can be sustained. Story 14. I'd say the best way to do it is to set aside some part of your paycheck and invest it reasonably. At least that's what I plan to do. I haven't started yet. Oh, and of course, obviously if you were already rich, it's easier to become richer because you can invest even more. Story 15. Finding multiple sources of income, buying an appreciating asset like a house and paying it off, etc. The really rich get into huge debts to build something brilliant, but the ordinary rich keep out of debt and build their wealth slowly. Two different types. The Dave Portnoys and the Dave Ramseys. I know you're not looking for a stupid answer like inherit $1 million because statistically that's not the case. Story 16. Every rich person I've had the chance to interact with generally had the same story of coming from a well-off family. Generally, that wouldn't guarantee becoming rich themselves. But being taught how to be financially responsible and not having to worry about student loans or getting stuck in a debt trap when times get tough can give you a tremendous leap towards it. I'm not saying it's impossible for your average person living paycheck to paycheck to become rich because life likes to be random, but it's a difficult journey that's going to have you finically broke for some time for the chance to become wealthy, be it by higher education for a white-collar job or business ventures. Story 17. Actually asking and being interested in the opinion of other rich people on how to make money. Don't enter a doom loop cycle of listening to poor people tell you how it's all impossible and you'll never be able to do it. Story 18. Rich people are able to make passive income in ways that poor or regular people are more often not able. Oversimplification, but by virtue of having excess money and not needing to use that money more immediate to pay for rent, food, etc., the rich can take their excess money and invest in things such as bonds, stocks, etc., that do not require active work for there to be a return back to the rich person. The money does the work, not the person. That's the difference. Me or you, assuming you are regular folk. We don't have that extra money we can use for this sort of activity because we need every dime to pay the water bill, insurance, kids' braces, etc., etc., etc. Story 19. It depends on your definition of rich. I know people who never made more than $100K a year who retired at 50, and people who had net worths in the 10-digit range who ended up struggling with cash flow because they had assets they couldn't liquidate. The former were totally relaxed and never worried about money. The latter, the exact opposite. So if your definition of rich is not being worried about money, the answer is pretty simple. Always live substantially within your means. People get that kind of rich by spending less, not making more. Investing the excess means eventually transitioning from living off your labor to living off your investments. Story 20. I was always taught to never act rich. Research purchases, spend only what you can afford. Live by a budget. I live paycheck to paycheck. I work hard. Have a modest house, decent cars, but nothing about me says I have money. I make my kids earn everything they want. No handouts unless they are working towards something. I invest, save every dollar. When I retire, I won't have it to worry at all. Story 21. If the number of people in here saying, "Be born rich, be a greedy asshole," skim profits off the back of other people's labor, and all the other not-my-fault mentalities just took 1 month to dive deep and learn financial literacy. These comments make me sad, and they're so determined that building wealth has nothing to do with their own actions that they all seem to just argue with people who make arguments as to how they're wrong and stick their head in the dirt. Story 22. As a portfolio manager who gets paid to manage people money, if you have a semi-basic financial picture, basically no crazy alt investments, and you are young, more than 15 years from retirement, do not pay management fees. I know how dumb that sounds coming from a person like me, but regularly investing into VU or any other low-expense ratio index fund will serve you well. Yea, if you stock pick, you may outperform during a certain time period, but I've rarely seen a better performance for price portfolio. Story 23. To me, being rich is to spend less than you earn. The difference can be invested in long-term projects. Also, being rich is to invest in yourself young, higher education, your degree, making sure values are good, who wants to promote an a-hole, etc. Also, everyone's have a different definition of richness. To me, being rich is not about money, but about how much you can afford when it comes to luxury stuff. If you can afford restaurants, travels around the world, costly hobbies, you're rich. Even if you don't make millions. And if you don't make... Story 24. I see so many wrong responses here who did not even understand the question, especially the top voted comments. Rich people have these attributes, being very lucky at first, but other than that, they are brave and actually try to become rich. For example, by starting their own business. But without a massive portion of luck, they would never be successful. You can take any rich person, and you will see this pattern. The luck can be very different. Inherities are the most obvious example. Story 25. Multiple income streams. One person started out as a plumber, was frugal with his money, then started his own plumbing company. Another was military, used his GI Bill to get his pharmacist license, opened a pharmacy. These two partnered up and used their income to purchase multiple businesses. They both still work full-time to ensure their primary and secondary businesses run smoothly. Story 26. Monthly budget, stick to it, where there is money left over. Save 10% of what you make. Invest in what you know, or in this market. Put money in a high-yield savings account at 4.5% until you come up with a plan for the 10% at investing. Work on your business, what you know, and earn more money as you become an expert slowly but surely. Know your worth, consistency, and time will be your friend. Story 27. You have to use the money you got like a lever. Invest and plan for the long run. That's what I'm trying to do. I'll never be rich, but maybe my kids will be someday. They'll inherit real estate and my stock portfolio. Story 28. Saving money is how you stay poor. You need to use money to make more money. Sometimes it wins. Sometimes it loses. Money is pretty much infinite for an individual. Not really, but yes to a normal person. Story 29. People say inheriting money, but it's more than that. Money buys access to the best schools and social circles. Rich people network with other rich people. Only a few have good ideas or superior talent.